Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our Silicon Global Online series. Really appreciate it. And we're going to have a great guest today who I'll be introducing in a moment. He is actually joining us from Israel. So that's an amazing thing, but he spends quite a bit of his time in Silicon Valley too. So we'll get to hear more about that in a moment. But I would like to introduce him. And just give me a moment to get the slides going forward here. A little bit about us, Silicon Dragon Ventures. We publish a lot of content in a lot of formats, and you can find us in all of these places like YouTube, where we do a recording of this show on Zoom, and our newsletter, our mobile app, our Silicon Dragon Circle membership, and so on. Also, my books, you can find us there as well, and our Silicon Dragon Circle membership. So I know many of you have already joined the Circle membership, and I really appreciate that. It makes the show possible, along with support from groups like Invest Hong Kong. So, okay. Well, without further ado, let me introduce Omri Amirav-Drory from NFX. He's, like I said, joining us from Israel and San Francisco. Today, he happens to be in San Francisco at NFX Bio's offices. So hello, Omri, how are you?
Great, it's a beautiful day in San Francisco.
Oh yeah, no, I see you got a great view there too. So a little bit about Omri before he tells us all about himself as well. I actually met Omri when I was doing an article on Mammoth Biosciences, and that's the company that is co-founded by Janice Chen, who is Nathan's sister. But Omri is the major backer of this company, which is a biotech company here in the Bay Area, and it's going real strong. So, but anyhow, I found out also that Omri is on the board of a whole bunch of biotech startups, 15 of them, in fact. He's a scientist, a PhD. He's founded and invested in scale a whole bunch of companies, many of them very important in the biotech space. And he's got Stanford degrees and Tel Aviv University degrees. So Omri, tell me, what have I missed? Maybe those are some of the highlights, but I think it's amazing that you're on the board of 15 biotech startups. I don't know how you can manage that. But you can tell me.
So hello everyone. My name is Omri. I'm a general partner at NFX. NFX has about $1 billion under management. Currently, we're investing via Fund 3. It's a $450 million fund doing pre-seed and seed investment. We invest in a bunch of stuff, but I only invested in the section of biology and technology, and it can be therapeutic, diagnostic, food, ag, materials, almost anywhere as long as it's in the intersection of tech and bio. And the background is I started as a scientist. I did my PhD in hardcore biochemistry, got the Fulbright fellowship, came to Stanford, did my postdoc in the medical school. And after 4 years, I started a company called Genome Compiler, where we build software for bioengineers. And I ran that for 5.5 years. That's how I lost my hair and gained 40 pounds because, running a company.
40 pounds, you look like you're in great shape.
Well, now I have less stress, but when I ran a company, it's a very stressful process. Actually, my 4-year-old just came to me a few days ago and asked me, Daddy, why do you have tiny hair? Which is very cute, but very sad. So after 5.5 years, we got acquired by Twist Biosciences. It's a San Francisco-based company that makes DNA, so synthetic DNA company. Where I was head of corporate development, working with Emily, the CEO. And after 2.5 years, being the head of corporate development, just before the company IPO'd, I left to start a small fund called Tech Bio. Tech Bio was a $10 million pre-seed fund, and then NFX invested in my fund. That we did Mammoth Biosciences together when I was still at Twist. That's when I met the initial founders of Mammoth. They invited me to join them. Initially as a venture partner for Fund 2, but now as a general partner for Fund 3.
Okay. Well, how did you become interested in biology and biotech? It's a really very complicated field. So tell us.
Yeah, it's a good question. as I told you before the interview started, like as growing up, I was this geeky kid that loved science fiction and reading and tech and science. And biology always seemed to be the most advanced technology on Earth. When you think about it, it's nanotechnology that works. It's the one technology where you start with one cell and you get 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. It's the first exponential technology. And it's quite amazing. Sometimes it looks like the alien spaceship crashed, landed on Earth, and we're trying to figure out how all this amazing technology works. That's how biology, feels. And we can use this technology to solve really big problems in the world, like in global scale. We can use it to solve, disease and hunger, and just to supply the future of humanity, if it's chemicals or renewable energy, etc. So, that's what drove me to biology, the combination of the most advanced technology on Earth and the ability to solve the biggest problem.
Okay, so what did you specialize in then?
Well, my PhD was very specialized, as all PhDs are. It was in a subject called structural biology, where you try to understand the three-dimensional structures of systems in biology. In my case, it was three-dimensional structures of proteins on the membranes of cells. That was pretty hard because crystallography is one of the technologies that I use. Excellent crystallography, we're trying to purify a lot of the protein you're trying to work on, crystallize it, and then shoot some X-rays, and from the diffraction pattern understand the structure of the proteins. Is one of the most binaries of all sciences. It either works or it doesn't. When it works, everything is easy and beautiful. The crystals are beautiful, diffraction patterns are beautiful, structure are beautiful. It's easy to publish, and everything is great. But very frustrating. It can just not work for weeks and months. And I think actually, the kind of grit that you need to finish a PhD in biochemistry, especially in that kind of science, really helped me when I became an entrepreneur, because you need to have grit to survive as a founder.
Oh yeah. How long did it take you to do your PhD?
So I finished it in 5 years, just before I started, but it was a direct PhD from first degree to PhD. And then I moved to Stanford again, initially thinking that I'm going to be a scientist. Like that was, unlike computer science, where people understand that you can start companies even without a degree. In biology, it's still not a thing. So it was either being a professor, or the kind of loser that go into industry, and nobody knows what industry is. It took me, I think, 3 years at Stanford to realize that starting a company is a thing that a person can do. And mainly because, monkey see, monkey do. And one of my friends, a bench next to me, a lab next door, started a company. I said, oh, if he can do it, maybe I can.
So you started a company then?
Yeah, I started a company. It was a company building software for bioengineers. Imagine something like IDE or AutoCAD to build life. We call it genome compiler because you can load entire genomes, modify them, and then press print and then twist. This is why they acquired us. Twist or another DNA synthesis provider can synthesize the DNA physically and compile the data, compile the biological application.
Right. So where do you see the biotech advances coming from? And is it Israel, Silicon Valley, China? Where do you see the most advances coming from, and why?
Yeah, you see a lot of biotech in Boston, the Bay Area, San Diego, Seattle, New York, Israel, China. There's a lot of hubs for biotech in the world. Right. Mainly, I call it tech bio. Biotech has been around for many years, biotechnology. I call it tech bio just because recently it seems like technology is increasingly important part of biotech. And when I look at tech bio, it's a combination of a lot of fast-moving technologies, because it's on the intersection of biology getting digitized with technologies like DNA sequencing, DNA synthesis, and sensors, turning analog biological data into digital form and back. Because when you read DNA, when you do DNA sequencing, you turn it from analog to digital. When you write DNA, you turn it from digital back to analog. That's a few technologies that are fast moving, but then because it's digitized, you can use all the computation advances, machine learning advances to make sense of the data. And then we have this whole thing of moving from people pipetting in the lab or a lot of manual error-prone work to high throughput automation at scale. So taking all of those technologies together, the cycle of designing, building, testing, and learning to create new product is just getting faster and faster. and it allows you to get to product faster. So the companies are looking more and more like tech companies. When you look at companies like Mammoth Biosciences, they have a lot of software engineers. They have a lot of bioinformatics. It's not just bio. It's not just people with lab coats in the lab. It's a lot of software, a lot of automation, a lot of hardware, a lot of robotics. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting because technology has permeated so many fields, and of course, biology as well. So what is the leading technology that's kind of impacted the biology field?
Again, it's starting
AI, is it data analytics? What is it?
It's starting with reading and writing, like everything, the I/O. So reading, sequencing. Obviously, everybody knows the Human Genome Project. It used to cost $3 billion to read the genome. Now it's less than 1,000. Soon it will be less than 100 or less than 10. There are new technologies coming online. So, you can start understanding the root cause of biology, but it's not just reading the DNA, just reading the RNA, reading the proteomics, the metabolomics. So you can read then more and more biological data in better and better resolution. And then because you read it, and now it's on the computer in the digitized form, you can apply, again, machine learning, data science to make sense of the data. And obviously all the advancement that's happening recently in AI and data science are definitely helping us in biology, where we have huge data sets. And then the ability to write DNA from scratch, to synthesize DNA, or using CRISPR to modify genomes. Those are very important technologies where you can read and you can now write applications in biology. And those applications are important applications. It's anywhere from creating new cellular therapies to fight cancer to, creating renewable chemicals or even energy. You can create renewable hydrogen, renewable chemicals, not from oil, natural gas or coal, but from sunlight and CO2. And when you think about life, it's the cells are like these magical factories that you can heat that can self-reproduce. It's really is magical technology.
Wow. So your science background really helped you in evaluating good startups to back then. And what else? How do you handle the due diligence of evaluating what kind of startups to invest in? Because you invested in quite a few. Tell us about your due diligence process.
Yeah, well, when I was a founder, I looked at I looked back at my pitch decks when I was a founder. I had like 148 versions of my pitch deck, and now with my investor hat, they all look stupid because I didn't know how investors think. To understand how investors think, you need to understand how the industry works. In general, there are three types of investors. There are people who invest their own money, people who invest other people's money, and strategic. So strategic invest for strategic reasons. People who invest their own money, they can do whatever they want. It's their money. If people like us, venture capitalists, invest other people's money, then usually we work, the structure is a fund structure where in general, there is two numbers. In general, 2 and 20. 2 is 2% management fee. So if you have $100 million fund, you get $2 million every year for fund expenses. And 20 is once you return the money, you share every dollar with your investor 20 to 80%. So we only make money once we return the fund. And you think that you invest in startups and then you have this nice distribution that some startups are doing amazingly well, some not, and most are in the middle. But the sad truth, it's a very sharp parallel where most startups does not return anything, and just a few of them return multiplication of the fund. So the entire game is to find those unique startups. And the way you evaluate them, you're talking about diligence, is the first question you ask, is it big enough? So if everything they tell you is right, will it return my fund? So if somebody is pitching, a restaurant in San Francisco, it doesn't matter how successful the restaurant is, it will not return a $450 million fund. So it has to be big enough. Second, do you have defensible magic? And this is where our scientific background helps. You have to understand the science. Is it magical science? Is it something very defensible that you can do and nobody can compete with? And third, are you the right people? And then you have to really get a feeling about the quality of the management team. Like, are you the right people to execute these magical technologies on this huge industry to return the fund? And that's how investors.
I see. So what was your best deal ever then?
Well, TBD. It takes time to see. which deal is the best, right? You only know in time, but definitely Mammoth is, one of the companies that.
Well, that's early on. That's early. That's so early, right?
It's still early, but it's already a $1.2 billion company, and we at NFX led the pre-seed and seed round. So very very early on, from the first $140,000 check, and then leading like a $2.something million seed round. So we've been there in the beginning. So so it's already been pretty good.
Yeah, how did you find them?
Yeah, it's funny. So when I ran my company, Genome Compiler, I had an intern that came to Israel during the summer. She was a Stanford student. And when I came to Stanford during the summer, when she came back, I met her, and she was the head of Cardinal Ventures. And Cardinal Ventures is this organization that helps students start companies. So she invited me to the demo day, and the team that became Mammoth was presenting in the demo day, and they were one of the few bio companies. So I came, I really liked them, so I came to them and tried to help them. Spend a lot of time with the funding team, and it was great. And then back then I was still working at Twist, not at NFX, but NFX invested in me, so I introduced him to NFX as an investor they need to talk to, and NFX led their pre-seed and then their seed, and that's how it started.
Okay, and I know in the article I did about Mammoth Biosciences, I have a quote from you where it said, "I'm never going to sell my shares. There's so much IP in that company." And I thought, wow, this guy is really quotable. I'm never going to sell my shares.
No. Actually, I learned it from some of the best investors. So, two investors that I really appreciate, like John Doerr, that invests in Amazon and Google. He never sold any of his Amazon shares, and he only sold some of the Google shares to pay for the capital that a general partner need to invest in his own fund. Yeah. And when you think about it, the best companies, there is never a good time to sell their shares. Like, was there ever a good time to sell Tesla shares or Google share or Amazon shares? Like, I bet people who sold the Tesla share when the IPO for $2 billion feel pretty stupid now. Or people who sold their Google or Amazon share early on. The best, somebody says, like, let your winners ride. If you have a winner, you want to go all the way with it. Yeah,
okay. So this company is what's going to happen to Mammoth Biosciences eventually? What's your guess on the company?
Well, again, they have so much IP, right? When people talk about CRISPR, they talk about Cas9. That was the first protein that Jennifer discovered that can edit human genomes. But Mammoth have several groups, several families of Cas protein where they own the IP, and they have so much application they can go after. On the diagnostic side, they own a lot of the IP behind Cas12 and Cas13. Those are two systems you can use to detect any RNA or DNA sequence, and that's just part of the company. And then the founders of the company, Lucas and Jenny, also discovered new systems like Cas14, Cas5, Cas Lambda, which are small Cas systems. If Cas9 is about 1,500, 1,300 amino acids, those new systems are 430, 440 amino acids, so about thirds the size, which means that you can deliver them way easier. And they own the IP, and the applications are endless. One side of the company can detect any DNA or RNA sequence, so can do diagnostic for almost everything. The other side of the company can cure any genetic disease. So they can do so many things.
Therapeutics and diagnostics.
Pretty good. It's very rare that one company has so much going on for
Oh, so for all those who are listening in, you can read that CNBC article. It's online. Just Google Mammoth Biosciences CNBC, and maybe my name will help too. And the article will pull up. It just published a few weeks ago, and it has all this background on Janice and what she's like, and the investment and the promise of the company. So I think maybe you'd want to read it. So let me switch gears a little bit, because there are a couple questions came in, and I want to address them because one of them is a question I had on my mind too. Okay. So everybody, talks about the cancer cure. When are we going to have that? And so Hal Kalman online here points out the industry started in 1976. We have only partial cures for 16 of the 200 cancers. So what is that right? And what's your response? What do you think about that? And are we ever going to have a cure for cancer?
Yeah, well, I definitely have a personal vendetta against cancer. My dad died 2 years ago from colon cancer. My Gita Reinitz, the principal that worked with me, that we started Tech Bio together, lost both our parents for cancer. So we have a
Really?
personal vendetta against cancer. So again, I feel a lot of optimism in the fight against cancer. I think recently people realized that you can use the immune system to go after cancer. And the most exciting type of drugs are cell therapies, where you modify your body own immune cells to go after cancer. And that was, I think, one of the few drugs that actually cured stage 4 cancer in a subset of patients, in a subset of diseases, in blood cancers, in a subset of those. But it's just a beginning, and I have several companies working to go after solid tumors using the same technology. So I'm very optimistic
What was the drug you mentioned? I just didn't catch the name of it.
Well,
on the stage 4.
So for blood cancers, there are you can use CAR T cells. So those are T cells that you get up you separate T cells from the patient's own blood, and then you genetically engineer them with a antibody that direct them to go after specific cancers. So the reason it only works right now for blood cancers, because blood cancers, so all blood cells have the same receptor, so you can target the immune system to go after this receptor. It goes after all the blood cells, the white and red blood cells, with the cancer or without cancer. So it kills everything. But the unique things about the blood system is that you can remove the bone marrow stem cell and inject new bone marrow stem cells that will create a new blood system over time. So this is why for blood cancers, for a subset of blood cancers, you can use CAR T cells to go after, and in some instances, it total cure, not a remission, but total cure for stage 4 leukemias. It doesn't work as well for solid tumors, and most cancers are solid tumors for several reasons. First, it's hard to find the receptors that only attack the tumor and not attack some other cell types. And a lot of clinical trials ended because those immune cells, those engineered immune cells, attack the heart or the brain and actually cause the death of the patient. And second of all is the tumor microsystem is very immunosuppressive. So those T cells have a hard time to work there. But there are new generations, the second, third generation of CAR T cells that are aimed to solve those problems for solid tumors. So I'm very optimistic about the future of cancer, not just the treatment, but also diagnostic, because the best cure we have for cancer today is early detection. Think about colon cancer. When it's stage 4, usually it's too late. But at the first stage, just a polyp, you can find it with colonoscopy and remove it, and that's it, you're cured, right? The best cure we can have is to do early detection. There are companies like Grail, where they have sequencing technology. We can use a blood draw and sequence it and find trace amount of cancer, so for early detection. So, those are both on the therapeutic side and the early diagnostic side. There is like new and interesting technologies.
So, okay, very interesting. So in the venture capital space, investing in biotech kind of companies is a very long-haul, long-term kind of investment. And people say, oh, the return is not going to be for way more than 10 years, could be 20 years. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Look, when people talk about biotech, they usually think about drugs and therapeutics. And yes, if you build a new therapeutic for people, you have to cross the FDA. Usually it's a long process. It can take more than 10 years, sometimes 15 years. It costs, about, hundreds of millions of dollars, and there is a large failure rate. Some person told me, drug prices are high, not because drug companies are evil, it's because they are stupid. Like if we were smarter and we didn't have such a high failure rate, then drug prices would be lower. But biotech is more than just therapeutics. Biotech is also, again, a diagnostic, direct-to-consumer. We have a company that makes direct-to-consumer glowing plants. So plants that glow at night, genetically modified plants that just produce light. which is just magical and beautiful, like Avatar. And
Wow.
there you just sell it to consumers. So the business model is different. You don't have to wait forever for the money to arrive. But even in directly therapeutics, there is a way where you can IPO early, years and years before you have a drug, and the public market accept that, and you can have liquidity for early investors.
Yeah. What was the name of that company you just talked about with the plant?
Light Bio. You can find it online at light-bio.com. And if you're in the Bay Area, they're going to present the plant for the first time for the public in SynBio Beta conference in the Auckland Marriott. So you're welcome
tomorrow,
to come and see it. Yeah. You can see it.
Oh, so the Oakland Marriott tomorrow. You're going to be there, okay?
Yeah.
And you're going to present this company, or that company is going to present?
That's one of our companies. I want to make a green hat that says "Make GMO Great Again," right? Because it's a really nice, funny, good use case for genetically modified plants, right? It's not something that people eat or anything like that. It's just the team found a novel bioluminescent pathway from growing mushrooms that fits the metabolism of plants. They move it to plant and they glow at night, and it's magical. It's so beautiful. I want every kid in the world to have this plant as a nightlight for their room to make them excited about science and about technology, where you can explain to them, this is how it works. It works because we inserted genetic code that produces protein that takes this molecule that emit lights, and look at it, it's beautiful.
Wow. That's almost worth the trip to Oakland to go see it. I'm on the other side of the bay, so without a car. But anyhow, I can get there by train. So how do you is this how you keep up to date with what's going on? It's go to these biotech conferences and talk to the other, I mean, you said you were a geek. I guess you talk to the other geeks that are there.
Yeah, look, for us, we like to invest early. So we actually go all the way to universities and talk to the professor that, that we like. We like to read papers. We like, there are spaces in biology that we're really excited about, like longevity or cancer therapeutics. And we read the paper, we see what's going on. And we're looking for these unique, magical ideas that we can commercialize and help the scientists fund. I think one of the biggest changes that is happening in biology right now, it used to be that, the scientist founder wouldn't start a company. You will come to venture capitalists, they'll start a company, they'll own everything, they'll find the management team, and the scientist founder might work for that company. But now the best founders, start their company, and there are funds like us that will invest in them and help them grow and be the CEO. So when I think about Mammoth, the three co-founders, Trevor, Janice, and Lucas, are all PhD students that invent the technology and start the company, and and it works there. We love to see that.
All from the Bay Area. One from Stanford, two from Berkeley.
Oh yeah.
Are those kind of the leading universities in this? What about the East Coast? What's happened to the East Coast?
No. I think obviously Harvard, Broad Institute, NYU. There's so many, San Diego. There's a lot of strong universities around the world making actually there is more interesting intellectual property in universities and entrepreneurs. The rate limiting step is, good founders that can take those, interesting magical technologies to market. That's what we're lacking.
That's the real key, right? To find those people who can take that technology or that science and actually do something with it, right?
Yeah, but we see more and more people from just general, people who made their fortune in just regular tech now want to marry their knowledge of how to start a company and raise money and scale it and make an impact. Because again, in biology, you can make a real impact. Instead of optimizing ads or making computer games, you can, feed people or heal people or provide for people. So even though the joke is, how do you make a small fortune in biotech, is you start with a big fortune. I tell my partners too, 80% of running a company is the same, no matter if it's a biotech company or just regular SaaS tech company. And then if it's a tech bio company, then, you already understand the 10% of tech, you just need the 10% of bio. So you need somebody in bio that understands bio, you need a bio founder, you need, it's good that the VC is actually has a scientific background and can understand what the people are doing. But you know, if you're a tech founder, you know 90% of what you need to know to run a tech bio company. You just need to find like the right bio partner to join you.
I see. Yeah, I can see where that could be an issue. So Hal Kelman again has these great questions over here in the chat, and he wants to know about Jim Allison, the Nobel Prize winner in medicine, said he told him in 2018 that this gut microbiome would be important in the future. Is it important now in 4 years?
Yeah, of course. The microbiome in general, not just for human health, but you know, also for plants and for other creatures, obviously very important. Like we have all these bacteria and viruses on our skin, on our gut, everywhere. And the more we learn about them, the more we learn that they are modulating a lot of disease states in humans and are required for our health. And you know, and sometimes when things go wrong, you know, the root cause is not our body, it's all the little bacteria running around. And actually it's easier when you think about it to approve a drug where it's a microbiome drug or something that affects the microbiome than something that affects you personally, right? So there are a lot of therapies where the therapy itself is just replacing your microbiome in different ways.
Okay.
So again, is it important? Yes, it's important. Again, the same enabling technologies of being able to sequence the microbiome to understand which kind of species we have, and then modifying the microbiome in different ways, from CRISPR to using phages, is really helpful. Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm sure you've been following all the COVID news and you know, Pfizer and
Moderna.
Yes, and also the Chinese companies are in there too with their own vaccines. So what do you think about the development? I mean, shouldn't we have already had some kind of cure already instead of just these vaccines, like 4 of them already? Shouldn't we have had a cure already? What's going on?
Yeah, people I think don't understand how lucky we are to have these fundamental platform technologies of RNA vaccines. We're extremely lucky, and both BioNTech and Moderna, I'm sure glad that they exist and the technology was developed. So you know, we've been ready when the virus emerged, when this specific virus emerged. And again, the vaccines are amazing. They are very effective against hospitalization and death. And the great thing about those vaccines are that they are programmable. So when there is a new virus, you can just read the sequence of the virus immediately. Sequencing is very quick now, and you can modify the RNA vaccine to fit the sequence of the new virus.
Really?
So that's amazing technology that never existed before. But people don't realize that both Moderna and BioNTech are not vaccines company. They're a delivery company. Their main technology was lipid nanoparticle that can package those modified RNAs where you can inject them and they will get into cells and express and cause the immune response. What I'm excited about is the future where I think we'll get a shot once a year for all the viruses. So you can easily create a cocktail of different messenger RNA for the flu, for the new corona strain, and not just for that, you can also do it for cancer vaccines. So a lot of cancers have a very unique new antigen. So those are antigens that only exist in cancer, and you can immunize your body for that, so it will be more efficient in killing cancer at early stages. So you might get a yearly shot where you update your immune system to go after all the new viruses, you know, different kind of cancers, and stay healthier longer. I'm very bullish on the effect, because this is the largest clinical trial ever. Billions of people got the injection. We know the side effects, right? We know that the platform in general is very safe platform, and we can use it to do so many things. So I'm very bullish on both BioNTech and Moderna.
Wow, yeah, that answered my questions about which breakthrough are you most excited about, and I think that must be it, right?
No.
No, what other breakthroughs are you excited about? What else is going to change our health future?
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm most excited about is the advancement in longevity, because again, I think right now our healthcare system is more, is more a sick care. Like you only go to the
Okay.
healthcare system when you're sick. You wait to be sick, and only then they go talk to you. You don't go to your doctor or everything is fine. You only go to the doctor when something is wrong, which is stupid.
Yeah.
I think the best healthcare system is a system that keeps you young and healthy. Young people in general don't die from anything other than suicide, right? So you want if you have a drug that can keep you young and healthy, it would be the biggest drug sales ever. It would be like the biggest hit ever in the world, and the biggest, like if you cure all cancer, you only increase average lifespan by 3 years. That's all, because cancer usually is a disease of the old people, right? It happens late in life, right? But if you increase lifespan only by 10%, it's 10 years or 8 years, right? Yeah. So I think longevity is the most interesting part of science right now, and there are a bunch of companies that are working on different aspects of that. Anything from removal of senescent cells to partial reprogramming of cells. So if you heard about the Altos Lab that's charged with $3 billion, they try to do partial reprogramming of cells back to a young state, and I think that will be really interesting technology for the future.
So are we all going to live to 100 or more years of age?
Yeah, but when people think about living longer, when people thinking about living longer, they're thinking about being older for a long time. They think about being 80 for 100 years. When I'm thinking about living longer, I think about being 20 for many years. So that's a different vision.
Sure, of course. Sweet 16. How about that? Yeah. Okay, so let's see. There's a question in the Q&A, and somebody wants to know how to get in touch with you, and I'm sure you have the answer to that as well. So what is the answer? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, if you just Google my name, you find my, I'm on LinkedIn. My email is out there, omri@nfx.com. It's very hard to reach me. Again, VCs in general are easy to reach. That's part of our job is to be accessible, so we can, the founders can find us.
Yeah, well, this is a person who's in Hong Kong, and I know that he has a private equity background and a technology background. So, but actually, I think LinkedIn is a really good way. I think that's how I contacted you originally, and then that's how I interviewed you, because you responded, and then I emailed you, and then then we did an interview. You were in Israel, and I was in Silicon Valley. I think you were on your cell phone in a car or something in Israel when I interviewed you. Because you seem
I was
like
in the car, I think.
You were in a car, yeah. So I was just sitting here, right? Pretty stationary these days, unlike my prior days of traveling nonstop. Let's see who else. There's another question that popped up in here. Okay. Okay, so Martin from Hong Kong says that he invests in longevity as well, and he's keen to hear which aspects you like best. Okay, so maybe you can answer that.
Yeah, sure. Many people care about longevity. Obviously, it's something that affects all of us, and it's the biggest risk factor for almost each disease that you can find. So for almost any disease that exists, the biggest risk factor is how old you are, from COVID to cancer to Alzheimer to almost every disease. So people care about this problem for many years. The problem was for years, there wasn't any technology that seemed to be able to help. But every time we discovered some basic science that was applicable, there was a lot of energy, a lot of money pushed to move it forward because people care a lot. So there seems to be a few pathways that seem to be working, and there are a lot of companies around. One of the pathways is clearance of senescent cells. So, during regular living, some of our cells stop dividing and becoming senescence, where it's like a zombie state where they are not alive, but they're not really alive, not really dead, and they cause a lot of damages. In mice where they genetically remove senescent cells, mice looked younger and lived 40% longer. Imagine living 40% longer, right? So there are a lot of biotech companies right now trying to create drugs to clear senescent cells. Not just for longevity, but for example,
how do you spell that?
Senescence.
Yes.
Yeah, I can type it if you give me a moment.
Type it in the chat box.
Yeah, so a bunch of companies are trying to clear senescent cells, not just again for longevity, but for example, there are things that get you to age faster, like chemotherapy. So chemotherapy creates a lot of senescent cells. So a bunch of companies are going after the removal of senescent cells post cancer treatment.
Yeah.
So that's that's one thing that people are working on. Another thing that people are working on that I mentioned is partial reprogramming. So the Nobel Prize for Medicine a few years ago went to a Japanese researcher that discovered that there are 4 transcription factors. When you add them to mature cells, turn them into embryonic states. So they call it induced pluripotent embryonic state. But the problem is, if you try to apply those 4 factors into human cells, you get cancer, because cancer is also cells turning to an embryonic cells and not differentiated cells state. But recently, people discovered that the subset of those transcription factors, either a subset of those factors, 3 out of 4, or just a short application of those factors, rejuvenate cells back to a more a young state. And does not cause cancer. So a bunch of companies like Altos Lab, that was funded by the founder of Amazon, by Bezos and others, or just recently raised $3 billion to go after that, to try to figure out how to use this technology to rejuvenate cells and rejuvenate, all organs and body parts. I think one of the problems in longevity is that the FDA does not see aging as a disease. There is no indication. When you develop a drug, you need to have an indication. The flu or specific cancer, you need to have an indication to build a drug against. But the FDA doesn't see aging as a disease. So you cannot have drugs against aging. When you develop a drug against aging, you have to develop a drug against an indication. For example, osteoporosis of the knee or something like that, because that's a disease, but aging is not. There is only one clinical trial that is going to start where aging is the target. It's a trial that Nir Barzilai is doing. It's a drug called metformin. It's a drug that a lot of diabetes patients are taking. That when people look at huge cohort of people that use a drug that are diabetic, and the same cohort of people, the same demographic that are not diabetic, that are not using the drug, the diabetic people on the drug live longer and have a later onset of age-related disease than the healthy population. So that might be the first rejuvenation drug that is already on the market, and a lot of people I know in the longevity space are already taking. And the clinical trial is not against aging per se, but it's against the onset of a basket of age-related diseases. And the thing about longevity is that all the different drugs against longevity most likely will have the same phenotype, because they're attacking the root cause of many diseases.
Right. So okay, so Madden said something about he's dosing daily on one of the things that you mentioned.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, okay. All right. Any further questions out there? We had a lot of good questions, a lot of good feedback. Certainly we've got our expert on the stage right now. So let's get a few more questions before we sign off. Okay, somebody's got their hand raised. Okay, Martin, you wanted to talk? Ask to unmute. I have to ask you to unmute. Okay, can you talk now?
So I wanted to try and drill down a little bit further in terms of the longevity stuff, because obviously that's something that everybody is afflicted with. Everyone's getting older and nobody wants to. Who do you think is doing the most interesting work, and which companies are doing the most interesting work, with the caveats that you've already just shared? It seems like in pop culture, David Sinclair and Walter Longo are pretty prominent, but obviously these guys are, mostly academics that have, grabbed a little bit of public attention. On who's actually investing and where they're actually economic opportunities.
Yeah, so many people are obviously investing. Again, as you said, people care about this problem. I like BioEdge Labs. It's a company out of the Bay Area that is doing a lot of cool work. Andreessen Horowitz led most of the rounds. I think they are a pre-IPO company in the Bay Area. Again, Altos Lab is very interesting. There's a bunch of companies. There was a paper recently about all the different companies in the partial reprogramming space. There's a list of them. Retro is a very interesting company in Redwood City. Who else? Well, the most interesting companies, we're actually investors in two very interesting companies, but they are still on stealth, so I cannot tell you exactly what they are doing. But yeah, definitely cool. Maybe next time we talk, I can disclose more information. It's a totally new technology that was just discovered recently, but I cannot talk about it right now. But hopefully it will be out there soon.
Okay,
that's following up. Thank you.
Mazen, I can give you. I can forward his contact to you since you're one of our circle regulars. I'd be happy to do that as long as you don't bug him too much. So I know you won't. He's a pro. Okay, any further thoughts? Omri, what haven't we covered that you would like to cover?
Yeah, so again, I need to go to the conference, but I'd like to end with that. I like to say that biology is the most advanced technology on Earth and that you can use it to solve the world's biggest problem. But I think there is a second technology that is as advanced as biology and very human, and that's entrepreneurship, because, entrepreneurship is a magic technology that human invented. When you think about it, entrepreneurs look at the world as it is right now and imagine and just are pissed off that, it's not as beautiful or as interesting in the world they imagine that could be. And then just using the strength of passion and energy and grit, they rip a hole in the universe and drag all of us, kicking and screaming sometimes to this new universe they imagine. And that's magical. Like, when, Elon Musk think about, we can go to Mars, and then he drags all of us to a world where we can potentially go to Mars. It's a magical technology. So usually I just encourage people, we need the smartest, best people in the world using the most advanced technologies of entrepreneurship and biology to go after the biggest problem in the world. We are not lacking problems. And I think the optimists and the pessimists are both right. The pessimists look at the world today and just project linearly, and they say, climate change, and we're going to run out of food, we're going to run out of fossil fuels, our future is going to be horrible. And the optimists look at the future, but look at the exponential rate of improvement in technology, and say, we're going to have all this amazing solution, we're going to live longer, and we're going to cure diseases, and we're going to have abundance of energy and abundance of everything that we want. So, both of them are right at the same time. And we need those people, applying technology and entrepreneurship to get us to the bright future and not the dystopic future. So that's what I encourage. And we're here to help and, with capital and advice. And
no, that's great. And you certainly have a large fund that's investing in this area. And how many investments do you make per year, would you say?
Me personally, again, as a fund, we are kind of unique because usually at the $450 million fund, we'll do larger A, B round checks. We like the early stage. So we're going to have 70 investment in fund 3. We have 5 equal partners. So each partner will have like around 15 investment per fund. A fund is every 2-3 years. So it adds up. It's a lot of work, but it's, when you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work, even though it's.
That's true. Yeah, so you're on the board of 15 companies, so that alone, it seems like would take almost all your time.
Yeah, it's pretty busy. In the beginning, it's very, it's easy, like everything is fine. The company has money and it's all sunshine and happiness. But along the way, again, as an early stage investor that most of your companies will not make it. That's part of the job, and it's fine. If all your companies are kind of successful, you're not doing your job well. You need to be, more risk, more reward. But it's hard, you fall in love with the teams, you fall in love with the problem, you want them to be successful, and sometimes it just doesn't work out.
You have to pull the plug, right? Yeah, sometimes you have to do a write-off, I guess. Yeah,
and it's never fun, And again, it's like being successful in entrepreneurship. It's like a test that you're only really making it if you score 99 or higher. So you can score 97, which is amazing, which means that you've been a great entrepreneur. There's also a lot of luck involved, but you won't make money, or the company will be not very successful. And it's very sad, but that's a way to go. And the good thing about the culture kind of in Silicon Valley in the US is it's a culture that allows you to make mistakes and to fail and to go back, and it doesn't penalize you for failures. Like
Right.
it's fine. Like as long as you're honest and you did your best. Sometimes thing doesn't work, but you can try again, again, again. So yeah.
Israel's like that too, isn't it? And China is to a certain degree, I think.
Yeah, but there are some cultures where failure is really frowned upon. And
Japan,
like,
you don't want to fail in Japan, right?
you do harakiri if you fail. You need to kill yourself and involve yourself, right? So that doesn't. That's not the culture that will support entrepreneurship, right? So yeah.
Right. Have you invested in any Hong Kong or Asian companies at all, or are most of your portfolio companies in Israel or Silicon Valley?
I spend half my time in Israel, half my time in the Bay Area. So most of my companies are either in the US or Israel. I'm open to invest anywhere in the world. I've been to Hong Kong. I've been to China. A lot of entrepreneurial energy there. A lot of bioproduction, by the way, is done in China. They care about bio a lot, and they try to invest a lot of money in the space. One of the biggest sequencing company is in China, very close to the Hong Kong border. Yeah.
Which one is that?
BGI. It used to be Beijing Genomic Institute, but now it's just BGI, and it's not in Beijing, it's in Shenzhen.
Oh, really? And it's privately financed?
Well, in China, it's never 100% private. It's always the government is involved in some ways, but yeah.
Right. But it has venture capital behind it?
Yeah. It's a public company right now.
Oh, yeah. BGI and iCarmen. I see. Yeah, a couple people on the line, they know it.
Okay. So it's been a pleasure to be here. And again, if
we really appreciate your time. And so let me just share screen because I got a few little announcements to make before we sign off. And we'd like to thank you very much. I would like to also make a plug for our next show, which is coming up very soon. Hold on a second. I need to. And Omri, if you need to go, it's okay. I will. We'll catch up with you later.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate it again. So, and also everyone will be recording this and sharing it online on our newsletter and our Zoom and all that. So you can catch up with it there too. So, okay, our next show is in about 2 weeks, and it is April 26th, 5 p.m. Pacific time, April 27, 8 a.m. Hong Kong time. We already have over 100 people signed up for this one. Hong Kong restart 2022. So I would encourage you to sign up right away because we're going to run out of little Zoomettes in not too long. So you can sign up Hong Kong restart 2022.eventbrite and join the fun. It's going to be a really great program. We have 3 top-notch VCs. We have a fintech panel of really excellent entrepreneurs who are going to be on stage. And then we have a Beta Bay talk about the greater Bay Area and how, Hong Kong is more and more plugged into Southern China and, how that relates to San Francisco. So we've got that going. So please sign up for that right away before the tickets are all sold out. Like I said, we already sold 100 of them. So there you go. Finally, Silicon Dragon Circle, if you join that, you'll automatically get a ticket to all of our shows for the year. Yeah, thank you again to Invest Hong Kong for supporting our series. We appreciate that. And we will see you on April 26th, 5 p.m. Pacific time. And if it's in Hong Kong, it's the next morning, as you know. All right, everyone, thank you again, and we'll see you next time, okay? Thank you again. I'm going to stop the share now and sign off. Bye-bye.